Hello and welcome back to Ben and Danielle Reviews. I'm Ben, and today I have Jamie and Andrew here, and we are talking about their top 10 games of all time for 2024.
Yep.
So, for those who have been paying attention to the list with the previous videos, a lot of these games probably shouldn't come as too much of a surprise. If you, we've kind of given a lot of spoilers,
Yep.
Especially more so on Andrew's list than Jamie's list. I'm actually really looking forward to hearing Jamie's list. So for those waiting for my top 10, that will be coming eventually, hopefully in the next month or so. Fingers crossed. We're still trying to get Sharita's schedule going. She's got a lot going on with her life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be taking a couple weeks off coming up soon. And so I'll have a lot of time to edit these videos,
Yep.
hopefully. But we'll, barring any 1970s electrical that goes haywire. Hopefully a phone charger doesn't cause a house fire while I'm gone. Yes, King County for you. Anyway, I'm rambling. So top 10. So, were there any huge surprises so far on either list? I know number 11 for me was kind of a surprise for
Clask,
you.
yep.
Yeah,
That was probably the one that was coming to mind for me. I haven't played Clask, but I was, again, kind of surprised to hear it come over Crocodile.
it's here at the shop if you want to try it.
All right, maybe I'll need to.
Yeah, it's fun. I know your games. We had a little bit of a disagreement with some of them. I've maybe had a few hot takes here or there.
My picks are quite warm.
Yes, I might have to disagree with a couple more possibly. And then Jamie, I'm expecting to see a little bit more heavier games coming up on this list because
We'll see.
I know you've had quite a bit of lighter ones
Yep.
earlier on. A lot of two-player games, so we're gonna see which ones are your all-time favorites.
Yep.
All right. Let's start with Jamie for number 10.
Okay. My number 10 is, no surprise, Grand Austria Hotel.
Number 10.
Okay.
All right.
Designed by Virginio Gaigli and Simone Luciani, published by Lookout Games. You're going to be running a hotel. There's 3 different colors, red, blue, and yellow, and there's going to be customers that you're going to be serving, and you need to get the different resources. It's got dice drafting in it, where depending on which die you draft and how many there are is how strong it is. So if there's 5 ones and you take that, you get 5 resources of that. And then you can never have too many of one over the other, depending on which one it is. And it's also got this Emperor track where if you don't get to a certain spot, you might be penalized or rewarded depending on how far you are on that track. And it's just a really good Euro game that I like.
Yes. So you had it on your list.
Yep.
Your list. Now, I thought this would be top 5.
I'm surprised it's 10. I thought it was going to be higher.
Yes, but
so there's
hey,
surprises to come.
10 is super high though.
Yep.
Sharita had it criminally low at number 29. You
I
had
had
it.
it even more criminally low at 37.
We'll talk about it a little bit more on my top 10. But since you two are here, let's discuss it a little bit if we can. So we talked a little bit. I think we kind of stopped just because we knew it'd be we thought it'd be
Yep.
Jamie's top 5, but 10 is a great spot for it.
Yeah.
So I know there's certain people in our group, Eli, who just hate playing with us just because between Jamie and I, he's got 0 shot. Jamie usually laps him on the board, and yeah, whatever your strategy is, it just works. So this is a game where you have your guests that check into your cafe, and once you feed them, you have to find rooms for them.
Yep.
So, is there a aspect of this game that's your favorite?
I like probably the combos of it and the what die do you take to get the most out of being able to finish off that customer, and then you finish off that one. That one gives you ability to do something else. And
Sure.
you can kind of combo a couple different things together.
Of all the action selection games, I think this one does it in my favorite way, where I could take an action,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also dependent on the dice, like how good that action is going to be
Yep.
for you, and it's where it can be randomness. You could be getting a lucky roll, but also there's also if it's a bad roll, then just do something else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or you can pass. and
Yeah.
then-
Hope for a better roll, but it certainly won't be.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, don't bank on a better roll next time,
Yep.
because you're rolling less dice, so you have less odds.
Mhm.
But hey, I've done it where I've re-rolled 3 times for trying to get that final thing in that final round, and didn't get there, and then I ended up being disappointed. And I was like, I should have just taken the cash.
Yep.
Yeah, such a fun game, and
It is very much.
I'm glad it's back in print again,
Mhm.
because when I bought it like 3 years ago, I swear I picked up the last known copy to man, last copy known to man, because
Mhm.
like right after I picked up my copy, it immediately became out of print, and yeah, and I couldn't share the love of this game. But it's a great game. All right, you're number 10.
My number 10, so I've mentioned a few times that I like Vlaada Chvátil, and you might have been like, where's all the Vlaada? I was promised lots of Vlaada. Well, we're in the top 10 now. So we're going to start with Vlaada Chvátil's Dungeon Lords. So
Okay.
I have Dungeon Lords Happy Anniversary, which comes with the Festival Season expansion, as well as a couple additional add-ons. But Dungeon Lords, you are Dungeon Lords, as you might imagine, and you're not Dungeon Lords yet. You're Dungeon Lords in training. You want to get a license to run your very own dungeon, but there are some adventurers who, unfortunately, just kind of want to wreck your dungeon and like trash it. So what you need to do is you need to be gathering monsters, digging your tunnels deeper, buying rooms for your dungeon to do different things, hire some imps, and then hire or build traps and get food for your monsters. And then, so basically what's going to happen is you're going to have 4 rounds where you're collecting these resources. And that's done in a really interesting way. It's a worker placement game where each slot has 3 different spaces on it. And depending on what order you are in the player order, depending on how late you pick that action, will tell you how good your action will be. So you kind of want to be later on in the track to get a better thing. But there's 4 players in 3 spaces. So if you're too late, you don't get to do the action at all. And this is all like kind of pre-programmed. So you have to make that choice and hope that you're going to get the spot you want. So that's really interesting. And on top of that, you're building all these resources. And once you get to that final phase, you are going to have the adventurers come in and wreck your dungeon. So if you've heard of Galaxy Trucker, you know that thing where Vlaada will have you build something up and then it gets torn down. I don't love Galaxy Trucker. I do love Dungeon Lords. There's a lot less just like random chaos that can happen in Dungeon Lords, but it's replaced with like a very puzzly, how can I use this monster to do this thing to take down this person. It's just wonderful. On top of all these things I've mentioned, probably the thing that is better than all the other things is the theme of this game is delightful. So each of the different tracks, as I said, get different things. And just maybe my favorite thematic quirk of it is, so the food track. If you go to the food track first, you spend some money to get some food. If you go to the food track second, you do a little bit of rampaging. I think you get a little bit of evil, but your food comes for free, so that's nice. I actually don't think you get evil. You acquire evil in this game, it's great. But if you get there third, not only do you get food, you get to steal the money that the first person paid to get their food, and then you become really evil. It's just delightful. The theme's wonderful. I love this game. It's so good. It's very heavy. It's like 2.5 hour experience, but it's delightful. Yeah, I love it.
Alright.
It's great.
So, clear the air here. You don't work for CGE.
I don't work for CGE, but I do love Lodge Models
They
games.
did not pay you to put every CGE game in your top 50.
No.
No, that's great. Have you played Dungeon Pets?
I have not played Dungeon Pets. It's on my shelf of shame. I'm sorry.
All right, that's one that I've been wanting to try.
Same here.
I'm not sure what the difference is too much with.
I think Dungeon Lords is a little bit less forgiving.
Okay.
I think Dungeon Pets isn't necessarily simpler, but I think it's a little bit more forgiving.
Mhm.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. And then Arnak is another one that you need to
I
play.
do need to play that one.
Yeah, so that one won't be in your list because you haven't played it, but more CGE to come, I think.
Okay.
I'm assuming there's more to come on your list.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Yes. All right.
Number 9.
Number 9.
is Unmatched. Designed by Rob Doppio and Justin D. Jacobson and published by Restoration Games and Mondo Games. It's basically a head-to-head battler type game where you each pick somebody and you're trying to use your cards in different ways. Each character has different abilities and you're trying to basically get their health down to 0, and it's just one that has a lot of variety, a lot of different characters from Marvel to like historical type figures and all that, and I just think it's awesome.
You got to play this for the first time.
I did. It was a 3-player game, which is probably not the best way to play Unmatched.
Nope.
So I'll bow out of the conversation.
Yeah. So I do think 2 players is the best way to play this.
Yep.
So there's the 4-player, which is the team game, which that one, every time I played that, it's ran way too long for my liking.
I've never tried that one.
But yeah, so I had Unmatched at 34. It's a delightful card game of a skirmish game. Do you have a favorite character? Put you on the spot.
Probably Yenica is
Okay.
one of my favorites.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So great pick. Awesome.
It's just one of those games, or any of these style games, I like to like get all the characters and try them and see how they play differently and all that. And
I think that's one of the things, like making a collectible card game and do it right is this way, where you don't have to, and then they're all kind of like plug and play what you you want to. Yeah,
that's what I really like.
I didn't think it would be in your top 10. That's awesome. Okay. Wow. Higher than Grand Austria Hotel. That surprises me a little bit, but I'm glad you enjoy this. Yes. So crossover with me, I'm assuming, because Sharita is okay on this game. She's not a huge fan. I think we can break her down though on that. And then Andrew's played it the one time. My favorite is still the gang up on Eli strategy. All-time favorite strategy in any board game is the gang up on Eli strategy.
Wonderful.
And he's not here to defend himself just yet. All right.
I'll try to gush a little bit less about that. I'll save my gushing for the Vlada games. So this next one's not a Vlada game, but it is the other half of what removed Agricola from my collection. So I mentioned Dungeon Lords was a worker placement game, resource collection, which is what you're doing in Agricola. If you don't know what Agricola is, I don't really care. But it's fine. It's a fine game. But you should play Le Havre. So Le Havre is... So it's another UA Rosenberg game. I think it's the only UA game on my top 50, but it's pretty high. So Le Havre is kind of a sequel to Agricola in some ways. In this game, instead of being a poor farmer who is struggling to survive, you are a, ship builder or something, some like random bureaucrat who's thriving. And you are trying to thrive even more. So it is a game where you'll be collecting resources to build buildings, to build more buildings, and then eventually build ships. And then those ships will get you tons of points and food. And then eventually you'll get more resources. And then eventually you'll be able to ship your resources for tons of money. Where Agricola is a game about struggling to survive, this is a game about you are going to make so much money. It's a worker placement game, but not really that much of a worker placement game because everyone has only one worker. and there's just plenty of options to go to, so that it's not really restrictive in that way. But it's just kind of a game of finding what you're going to do and then doing it as well as you can, which is, as far as those kinds of games, probably one of my favorite. I don't know if there's another Euro game on my list that does the same thing as Le Havre better. So yeah, I'll also say it's different than the last one I talked about. I didn't really say this. Dungeon Lords, you're gonna struggle pretty hardcore. This you will not. One thing about this game is there's a loan mechanic, which if you've played Agricola, you'll be like, oh no, avoid it. You don't want the begging cards, they're so bad. You want to take loans in this game. You can really jumpstart your stuff pretty early on if you play right. So,
All right.
I like this one.
Do you have any Uwe experience?
I played New York Zoo and
Yep.
some of the Patchwork. I
Sure.
have not got to play any of those Euro games. I think if I did, they would be on my list. That's one I really wanted to try.
It's a pretty good one.
Yeah, so I like Uwe's smaller games. I like his bigger games like this and Agricola, Caverna, Feast for Odin, all those. They're ones like Hallertau, all those. Those ones just don't hit the table for me. I know with this game, would you agree that you have to have a good storage solution inside the box?
Yes. So there's like puddles of resources that you need to organize when you play. I don't bling out my games. You know what? You're just gonna get to see this, and I'm sorry in advance. It's so necessary that I made these out of plastic cups to hold my resources because you just can't without it.
But you have it sorted into separate bags, though, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah.
Like, you can't just... This isn't a game where you just throw all the components in the box. You have to have it well organized in separate bags for... There's so many different types of resources in this game, and so you have to have a good storage solution, or you're going to spend all day just organizing the game to set it up. And so, that's... I will have to play that. And here comes Eli. And yeah, so probably not going to ruin Eli's life with Le Havre today, but
That's another game that takes 2+ hours, probably way more with more players. So it's long.
but I definitely want to crack that out, whether it be 3 players with us or 2 players. But yeah, so you have your copy, I have my copy. I bought my copy used. I didn't realize that I bought the Australian version. I don't know what the difference is, but aside from the cover art, because the guy instead of has like blonde hair, got like the surfer dude blonde hair instead of like the regular. But yeah, it's one I want to check out for sure.
Same here.
All right, number 8
is the Castles of Burgundy.
Castles of
designed
Burgundy.
by Stefan Feld and published by Alea and Ravensburger. It's I think it is my first Euro game I ever played.
Nice.
You're going to be rolling your dice and then using those dice to do different things. You can pick up, so if you roll a 1, you can pick up the tiles from 1, and those tiles are going to do different things. There's buildings, there's sea ships that allow you to go to like different depots to get tiles that you can turn in for points. There's workers you can use to mitigate the dice, and it's just one of those ones that is really fun, and I like that it uses like dice in a unique, cool way.
So when we played it, it ran a little long.
It did, yep.
We also played it at 4, which is probably not the ideal player
I know,
count.
I like it at 2.
Okay, so I had it at number 39 this year, based on only the 1 play. When I talked about this game, Sharita was so offended that I had not taught her this game yet, and I was like, "Have Jamie teach you, or or something." But I'll have to learn how to play it myself, and maybe teach her how to play it. But it's one that probably will need to get played at 2 players. But yeah, not the prettiest game, but it's pretty fascinating, the different strategies.
Yep.
When we played, I did the strategy where I had the most ships, and so I just made sure to go first every time. I might not have known what the best thing to get every round was, but I had made sure that I was first every round. Yeah, so 39, and you had it at number 8?
8, yep.
All right. Awesome. Andrew's number 8.
My number 8. Okay. So before you get worried and think that all of my top 10 are going to be super heavy games, this is the last one is the last super heavy game on this list. But is it heavy? And this last one, or number 8, is Mage Knight, the board game. So another Vlaada Chvátil, but it's not CGE. It's a WizKids game. So, but this is like... So I've never played Gloomhaven, but I know that there's some things in Gloomhaven that like kind of share some aspects with Mage Knight. Like, so Mage Knight, you are a Mage Knight, and you're not really a good person or a bad person, but you are a very powerful person. So you are going to be kind of slowly building up your power, gathering units, gathering different spells or different advanced actions, battling different monsters to gain experience, interacting with different locals to get new things in your, repository. And then you're doing all of this to get your Mage Knight powerful enough to do the big thing at the end of the game. That big thing might be taking down a city if you have the base game. If you have some expansions, it might be beating the big bad Volkare army. So there's a few things I haven't mentioned yet. One is that this is pretty much, for me, a solitaire game. I've played it 2-player more than once, and actually the people I've played it 2-player with have liked it quite a bit. So it's certainly playable at 2. Don't know if I'd go much more than that. Another thing I haven't mentioned is that I have to set aside a day for this game. This is one where even playing solo, it's probably going to take me like 4 to 5 hours. So I'm pretty sure the longest game on my list. I will also say that it is very brain burny. So like there is a lot of multi-use cards in this game. There's a mana mechanic where you kind of get to use 1 mana for free each turn, and then you can accumulate some others. But that mana will let you power up your cards in different ways. So every turn you'll be thinking, okay, what mana can I use to get the most out of my hand to do exactly what I want to try to do. So this is just one of those games where if I want to play, it's the only solo game on my top 50 list. I typically don't love solo games, but I do love this game. It's pretty great. It's what I want from a 4+ hour board game where I'm going to be slowly leveling up my character, getting more and more powerful to accomplish some big task. It's just exactly what I want for that. It's pretty great. So
I know a lot of people that like solo games. This is kind of their favorite solo game, most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I thought this might be top 5 for you.
So I was thinking, I was saying this before the video started. The last 3 games you've talked about are 9.5s for me.
Yep.
And I think that might just be because of the weight, because they are just so hard to get to the table.
Sure.
So that's probably the only reason it isn't higher, is like it's one of the best games I've played. I would say this and Through the Ages are probably the best designed games that Vlaada's done. Through the Ages wasn't as high for me, but it's still a marvel of game design. And I'd say this is also a marvel of game design from Vlaada. It's not the highest rated Vlaada on my list.
Yeah. I had a chance to get a copy of this for really cheap a couple years ago, and I let someone else pick it up instead, just because I knew that, hey, I'll probably never get it to the table if I buy it, and it's just a big box. It takes up so much space. And so I never picked it up. I also haven't been playing solo games lately, and when I play a solo game, it's usually like a quick half-hour filler sort of thing. So, but yes, and also Tigray playing.
So
yeah,
when you
that's
put the
adorable.
picture up for this game, it better be my cat playing Mage Knight.
You'll have to send that to me
I
again.
will make sure to do that.
Yes.
So that was the story.
Yes. Oh, so cute.
Yep.
All right.
Number 7
Yes.
is Role Player, designed by Keith Majika and published by Thunderwork Games. It's a dice drafting game where you're going to be picking the different dice to put them into your thing to create a character, and there's going to be a market of cards that you can use to give yourself more different abilities or be able to like manipulate different things, and it's very puzzly, and it's just one that's been fun.
Awesome. Have you played any of the role player series?
Okay. I think I've played this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've played it once, and it was years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have super strong thoughts on it. But
This is one I have to play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's dice worker placement, isn't it? Or dice placement?
It's kind of like Sagrada in a way.
Sagrada,
There's
yeah.
going to be there's dice here, and then depending on which order you take them in, is going to determine who gets to go first in the market. I believe is how it works, and where you put them depends on like you have these different like cards, like a backstory card and stuff. So on one roll, like your strength roll, you might want to try to get like 18, so you're trying to get like higher dice in that. And then depending on which one you put, like the strength one, I believe it allows you to flip the die, or flip any die in your thing, so you can change from like a 1 to a 6. So it's like very puzzly and fun.
would you say if you like Sagrada, you will like this game?
Possibly. The theme might be a turnoff for some people.
Okay.
But it's just one that I've really liked.
I would think this is more of a game for people that enjoy the aspect of spending an hour, 2 hours creating a character for Dungeons and Dragons.
Weirdly enough, my mom has played both of these games.
Yeah.
She doesn't really like Sagrada. She likes role player,
Yeah.
but has like no interest in the theme.
Oh,
She
okay.
just likes the game.
Sure.
It's just kind of weird. I thought she'd like Sagrada more.
I think if we were to play this game,
Mhm.
I would want to have my character be used in a role-playing game, because I would feel like, hey, I'm done with this, and when's the actual game start?
You can, in the expansion, they give you like a sheet of, basically you can do that. You have this whole pad of
Yep.
things, and you can write down all the stats and all that. And
And so by this point, there will be a video up of my first experience playing Dungeons and Dragons. I've recorded a video with Danielle about that. If it should be up already by this point. Talk about our first experience, and then while I'm gone on vacation, I'm gonna read up on the manual, the player's handbook for Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm gonna run a Dungeons and Dragons campaign at some point soon.
Okay.
So yeah, look for more of that content. If that content is appealing to you, let us know in the comments. But yeah, role player. Awesome, great pick. I gotta play it. So that was your second in the series.
Yep.
Is it safe to say that's your highest from that series?
Yep. That's only 2 I've played. So.
Okay, cool. Because I know there's the adventures, which you actually take your character creation a step further and actually use it in a role-playing campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, I'm not sure who here's actually played any of those kind of campaign style
I haven't, no.
role-playing games. All right,
We at 7.
we are at 7, I think.
Yeah, I just did 7.
Yep. Okay, so we are about. I think I warned you that was my last of the super heavy games on my list. So we're about to take a pretty significant drop off. I'll
There we
also
go.
say the rest of the games on my list are 10 out of 10s for me.
All right.
So what order they show up in could change from day to day. I think this is pretty. I'll leave it there. Order could change. This first one is One Night Ultimate Werewolf. So number 7 is One Night Ultimate Werewolf. I touched on this a little bit when we talked about Avalon. So this is a social deduction game where you're going to have some players are going to be werewolves, where they want to. Okay. Some players are going to be villagers. They want the werewolves to die. Some players are going to be werewolves. They don't want to die. And then a player is going to be a tanner. He does want to die. And then there's plenty of other weird roles. And basically, in this game, there's going to be a night phase where cards are going to get swapped. People are going to peek at different cards. And then after that night phase, there's a 10-minute discussion where everyone just tries to figure out what's going on. You don't get to look at the role you have after that night phase. You're not only trying to figure out who everyone else is, you're also kind of trying to play the game. Did I get switched with someone? So this game it can get pretty crazy. It is, as I said, a 10-minute conversation, and then the game's over. Everyone's gonna pick who they think the werewolf is, or if you're a werewolf, you're gonna pick someone who's not a werewolf, so that, werewolves don't die. And then whoever gets picked the most is gonna die. Werewolf gets picked, they lose. Villagers win. Otherwise, villagers win, unless the tanner wins. Whatever. So the reason why this game for me is a 10 out of 10 is because it's so quick. It's so easy to teach people because the app does half the teaching for you. The app says, this player do this, whatever. And I think if you have the right group for it, it can be... I think the people who like this game are going to really like this game. The people who like this style of game where you're trying to lie, just lie your face off, but also lie in a way that's convincing, because people will have different amounts of information at the table. Like the seer knows some stuff. So when you're trying to lie in a way that won't immediately tip off other players around the table that you're lying. For that reason, this is actually, it's a lot puzzlier than you would think for a social deduction game. It's a lot more performative than something like Avalon, where you just have to be a little shady. This, you have to have your lie ready to go and say it convincingly without tipping off everyone. So I think it's a pretty demanding game, but if that's okay with you, I think it's a pretty fun one.
That's right. So Jamie, you've played this a couple times
Yep.
now. Probably not as much as I have, but what do you think?
I don't like it at all.
Okay, understood.
I don't like the whole, like, you're swapping different roles and all that and
Okay.
stuff. Avalon, like Resistance Avalon, which I haven't played, that sounds more interesting.
Okay. You don't like the whole role swapping and
Mhm.
potential that you.
Well, you
could-
don't even know what your other role is,
Sure.
so it's just like you can end up being like a werewolf or something, and you have no clue that you are. I don't know.
Sure. I think that's funny, personally.
Mhm.
I enjoy that. I think Ultimate Werewolf with the long form version might be the way to go. Maybe try that. Would you try the long form one at some point?
Mhm.
Maybe, if not physically, like maybe do like a virtual game of that at some point in the
Yeah.
next couple months, and maybe see if I can get like 10 people or 12 people, something like
That'd be
that.
fun, yeah.
I will say I would not say those games are interchangeable. They're trying to do
Yes.
totally different things.
Yes.
And yeah, I do think you'd probably like Avalon more.
Mhm.
And I do think plenty of people would like Avalon
Mhm.
more. As I said, this is a pretty demanding social deduction game. I think Avalon is less so, but still very good. It's just not quite as loved
So-
by me.
So I'm hoping by the point that this video is out, we'll have played a Werewords. I know Eli picked up a copy of Werewords, and he's wants to teach us how to play that. So
That'd be fun, yeah.
we'll give that a try. I want to get the long form Ultimate Werewolf a play.
Mhm.
In this game, my favorite role is the Tanner. I just like, even if I'm not the Tanner, I just like convincing people that I'm the Tanner so that they'll kill me off.
Oh no.
But usually when you're asking to die, it doesn't work out very well. So even if you are the werewolf, you can just be like, hey, I'm the Tanner, kill me, and then they won't kill you.
It's a valid strategy.
Mhm.
So
Number 6.
Yeah, number 6.
Number 6 is my favorite Azul. It's Azul Queen's Garden.
All right.
Designed by Michael Keesley and published by Next Move Games. This one you're gonna have the 4 tiles on the thing, but you're going to be there's also going to be these tiles that you place on your board where you actually place the tiles. You're trying to get sets of the same shape or sets of the same color, and it's the puzzliest one of them all, and it's one that I've really enjoyed and I've played a lot, and yeah.
So this is the heaviest of the Zuls, would you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't feel heavy now that, like, it's probably the hardest one to learn, but once you learn it, it's not too bad.
Okay, cool. Awesome. It's one that I've never considered picking up just because whenever I want to play Azul, it's usually because I want to have a introductory experience that's easy to teach people, and I don't feel like I can get that with Queen's Garden.
Probably not, no.
So it doesn't fill that same sort of niche that that the regular base Azul does. So that's why I've never really considered it, but it's one I would try for sure. All right.
All right. My number 6. This is the highest rated game on my list that could change because this is based on 2 plays. I enjoyed it quite a bit for those 2 plays, and it got a 10 out of 10 for me. And that is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
All right.
I don't even own a copy of this game. But what I do own a lot of are Agatha Christie novels. And the reason why I like Agatha Christie is, I know, hard pivot. We're coming back to Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. But the reason why I like Agatha Christie's books is because she does a really good job of feeding you the clues in a way that you can figure out the mystery on your own. And what I'd love to do is just read one of those books and then talk with someone else while we're reading it and then try to puzzle out the mystery together. That's exactly what you do in Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. There's going to be a mystery presented, and you are going to be following different leads by reading different passages from a book of just a bunch of prompts. You're gonna decide to follow those leads by like going to different locations, looking up people in the directory who might be of interest and saying, oh, we might want to read this passage to interview them, and all that sorts of stuff. And it feels like you are collaboratively reading a mystery novel together and putting it together, which is, again, something I just really enjoy. The production quality is pretty good. Apparently there's some typos here and there, but there's like these newspapers that you can read while other players are, kind of trying to do their own stuff. It's just really nice. I've played a couple campaigns from the Jack the Ripper box, which I really want to get my hands on either the original or Baker Street Irregulars. It's really hard to get your hands on most of the boxes right now. But I would say just that whole experience of kind of solving a mystery together, I have not seen that done elsewhere as well as I've seen it done in Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. So even though I've only played it a couple times, based on that, like, it does something very, very well, and I enjoy that thing quite a bit. So, there you go.
Do you have any thoughts on these?
I've never played them. I've been interested in trying like something like Chronicles of Crime or like Detective. Those kind of games sound interesting.
Sure. Yeah, so usually my go-to for that is Chronicles of Crime. Games like that are extremely group dependent.
Very, yep.
And I know there's certain people in our group that really dislike games like that. And so playing with them can be a little bit harder because they don't maybe not try as hard as maybe the game requires. And so you really have to put your best effort into this game, even if it's like myself who's not good at these kind of games. You have to really try your best to try and solve the mystery, or else it's gonna be impossible for all the players to get through the game.
I have not played Chronicles of Crime. I read up a little bit on it to see, because you'd mentioned that you'd played it. From what my understanding is like they're very similar. So I don't think if you're bouncing off Chronicles of Crime, you're gonna love Sherlock Holmes. What I have heard is I think it's pretty universal that the writing in Sherlock Holmes is a lot better than Chronicles of Crime.
Sure.
And the ambiance is totally different too. Like a Sherlock Holmes style mystery just feels different than a 20th, 21st century detective story.
Sure.
So I think that would have something to do with it. I'm also going to do a quick plug. I'm in the print and play community, do a lot of those things. There is a game called Razorhurst that was made for one of these solitaire contests, which is essentially along the same lines as a Sherlock Holmes type thing. There's a few extra mechanics added on, but it's based off of a real life crime story from, I believe, New Zealand. Razorhurst, maybe. So I'd plug that if you're interested in Sherlock Holmes but don't want to commit the money. I would check out Razorhurst because it's a similar idea. It was very well done. So.
Yeah, so this is a genre that I quite enjoy. I'm just not good at it, so I need to really play not only with people that are good at the game, but also enjoy these kind of games.
Yep.
Because if the person I'm playing with don't enjoy these types of games, then the experience is going to be awful. And so that's why I enjoy playing those games with you, with Sharita, with Danielle, because all three of you will get into the theme of the game and put your best foot forward. Not saying that Jamie doesn't, or anyone else doesn't. It's just a very group-dependent game that, But yeah, you haven't played Chronicles of Crime.
Nope.
Okay, that might be one that we'll have to try then.
I haven't played, I don't think, any of these style games.
Because I think the closest did you get to play Awkward Guess?
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, I like that one.
That was probably the closest that that we've played as a group. I know I've broken out Chronicles of Crime before when y'all two weren't around, and it was a disaster and a half.
Oh really? Oh.
Yeah, but it wasn't just Eli. Also, David was there, and I want to say my coworker Jeremy was playing as well. But Jeremy was kind of half paying attention to the whole thing and half working, and yeah, it was a disaster and a half. And
I don't know if that would be as much of a problem with Sherlock Holmes because it's so collaborative and like there's not much that's restricted to one person. Like everything's being done as a group, so if one person's not super into it, I think the others can compensate.
So another one. So I have Detective, which is a campaign legacy style, and then I also have Detective City of Angels, which is another
I've
one.
played that one.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Okay. Sweet. Awesome. Good pick. It's one I definitely want to check out at some point.
Number 5. This was my original one when I first did a list a long time ago.
Okay.
It's called Seasons.
Okay.
Designed by Regis von Nessy, published by Libellude. It's a card game. You're going to start by drafting a hand of 9 cards. Once you do that, you're going to separate them into 3 different ages, and you have to get the resources by rolling these dice. And it's very combo-y, and you're trying to like play these different cards to do different things, and it's just been one that I've really enjoyed.
I think if that's your number 5, I definitely need to try it.
Yes. So I also have a copy that was donated to me to demo at the shop because I just haven't gotten around to it. I thought about learning how to play it. I know Rodney has a video for it, but maybe bringing it to the shop one day and just being like, here Jamie, show us how it works.
I could do that, yeah.
And that might be the way to go. All right. We have so many games that we have to try now. All right. I'm surprised this is in your top 5. Okay. I knew you enjoyed it. I just didn't think it was top 50, let alone top 5.
Yeah, I think it was one of the first games I played on Board Game Arena.
Okay.
Way back when. And I was very new into games. I didn't even really know about board games too much, like the hobby version, and it just kind of like blew my mind with like all the different like decisions and stuff.
Sure.
And I played it a bunch.
Former number 1.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. That's crazy. Okay. Awesome.
I didn't really plan well. I need to go try to slide something out from underneath 2 other boxes really quick.
Oh yes.
Here we go. Concordia.
Hey.
So
Concordia.
this says Concordia Salsa. Ignore that. It's Concordia. Salsa's an expansion. So Concordia is a hard game to gush about. Let me tell you how you play Concordia. On your turn, you're going to play a card and do what that card says. I've now told you how to play Concordia. There's a bit more than that. Each of these cards are going to do different things. So like you might have an architect, which will let you build next to some of your colonists. You'll be spreading the colonists around the board. That card also lets you move your colonists. You'll have the merchant, which lets you buy and or sell 2 types of goods. You'll have diplomat. That's not what the diplomat does. You'll have 1 person who lets you get new cards to add to your hand, which will let you do different types of actions, and just different things like that. And then you'll have 1 very important card which lets you take back all your other cards, which is a mechanic you've seen in a few other games probably. Like, I think some aquatic game that you showed us had that, but Concordia's better.
Cool.
Hot take.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aquatica?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I didn't say though is that a lot of these actions, sure, you can build when you play the architect, but you can build as much as you want when you play the architect. Sure, you can exchange 2 types of goods when you play the merchant, but you can like sell 5 silk and buy 7 brick if you want to, as long as you're prepared. So, and that take back cards one. You take back all the cards you played. So this game isn't necessarily about trying to use those actions. It's about trying to pump as much out of every single action as you can, trying to plan in advance so that you have the resources to build like 3 or 4 different buildings on a turn. So that you can just make a ton of money off of the merchant, or so that you can buy 2 cards in a turn, or, and this is the best feeling at all in Concordia, when you've played all of your cards except for the one that lets you take cards back, so you are suddenly taking them all back all at once due to your wonderful planning and getting tons of money. It is a game, there's not a lot of rules to the game, but everything in the game is just very tight. It's a very puzzly game. It's a very strategic game, and it just packs so much into the simple rule set. What I will say, it's a little hard to teach and or get your first time. And part of the reason is the scoring in this game is a little weird. It's very weird. It's not that weird. But it's one of those things where like I don't think you're going to do well on your first game just because it's going to take some time to get used to how the scoring works. Basically, those cards that you've been buying are going to be kind of multipliers for the different victory conditions that you get in the game. So it might not seem to be that important to get those cards, but no, that's how you get your points. So there's just so much baked into every decision in this game and it's about a 90-minute game. That's about right. For this style of game, like a medium weight Euro game, this is what I would pick pretty much any day of the week. So I like it.
Yes. And y'all played this while I was on vacation
Yep.
too.
Yeah. Because you were calling it ugly. Does this game look ugly? Absolutely.
Yes, it is ugly, but I also hate the fact that you need to buy an expansion to play the solo mode.
I've never even played the solo mode, and I think it's probably the Venus expansion, which I haven't
I
played.
think it's like the Solitary or something.
Yep.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, Jamie, did you enjoy this game?
I only played it the once. I think it's one I would like if I played it more.
Sure.
It seems like my style of game.
Okay.
I like those like medium weight Euro games
Sure.
with not like a lot of complex rules, but it gives you a lot of like strategic decisions and all that.
Sure.
So I'd like to try it again.
Because you're very passionate about this game.
The problem is I don't like a bunch of medium weight Euro games because I like Concordia.
Sure. Yeah.
So
People that have played this game are very passionate about this game. Whether they love this game or they hate this game,
Oh, yeah.
they're very passionate about this game. And I gotta play this. I'm bummed that you got to play this while I was gone. I know Eli, one of Eli's favorites, of course. I heard you almost killed him.
I'm sorry.
But yes, poor Eli. Yes, I want to play this. I picked up a copy. Am I confident I'm gonna ever play my copy? No. But I have a copy now, and it's very like a thin box, so it doesn't take up a lot of space on the Calyx shelf because you can just kind of slide it into a tight space there, which I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now that I messed up all your components
It's all
in the
bagged.
box.
It's fine.
There you go. Top 5. Nice. Probably not top 5 for Jamie.
Nope. My number 4 is Dice Throne.
Okay.
Designed by Nat Chantelier and Manny Tremblay. It's a 2-player head-to-head game where you each pick a character and you're going to be rolling dice kind of like Yahtzee, and you have a hand of cards and you're trying to get them down to 0 first, and each character plays differently, which is again something I really like, and it's just been one that plays quick and it's fun to see how the different characters play.
Awesome. Have you played Dice Throne?
I have not.
Okay. So I've only played it once.
Mm-hmm.
I played it probably like 4 or 5 years ago. I learned this game, taught this game by someone that like worked at the company or used to work at the company, whatever. And it wasn't taught to me very well.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a very fun experience. Maybe it's just the person I played with or so whatever.
Possibly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's not one I've really thought about getting back into.
Mm-hmm.
I did pick up like a year or so ago. I picked up the Marvel 4-player pack because it was on sale. But it's one that I want to give a try to. The Santa vs. Krampus sounds pretty fun.
Yep, I got all of it. So.
You have all of it?
Mhm.
Okay. So is that like a 2-player experience mostly for you?
Yep. I've played it 3 players once, but yeah, it's mostly 2.
Okay. Prefer 2-player?
Yep.
Okay. One of these days,
Mm-hmm.
because this kind of experience, I kind of play King of Tokyo instead, just because it plays 6 players,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Dice Throne plays 2.
Mm-hmm.
But so I usually with this kind of game I'll play Unmatched or King of Tokyo instead.
Yep.
But I'm glad you like it. I'm surprised. I thought it would be top 10, but maybe not top 5.
Mhm.
So that's awesome.
Yep.
Cool. And you have pretty much everything for it.
Yep.
Okay, that's a lot of characters.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I
Awesome.
like to do that with these games, is try like all the different characters and
Oh,
all
yeah.
that. So
Awesome. Do you have a favorite by chance?
Black Widow's one of my favorites.
Okay.
Pyromancer. There's a few, yeah.
Okay.
I've actually ranked them all.
Okay. We'll have to maybe see that at some point.
Yep.
All right. I would love to see your list if you ever want to make that video.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Number 4.
Number 4. Okay, so I'm gonna say this first. 2 through 4, order could change. Day of the week.
Sure.
The second thing I want to say about number 4 specifically is this is the only game that has ever stolen the number 1 spot away from my current number 1. And I think if I got back into playing it, it might steal that spot again. But that game, it's another Vlaada Chvátil game, which is Space Alert. So Space Alert is a cooperative real-time game where you are on a exploratory mission where nothing bad will happen. I promise. The problem is occasionally some bad things happen, and you might need to deal with like an asteroid coming at your ship, or like some shielded marauders that are just gonna blow you up, or like an alien type creature that's trying to get into your, crew and invade them, or whatever. But nothing bad will happen. So what you're going to be doing in Space Alert is it's an action programming game. So you're going to be moving around the ship, hitting different buttons that will do things like transfer energy, or fire weapons, or refuel your energy, or maybe pick up the battle bots, which were probably just put there for ornamentation's sake. You're not going to need battle bots. But if you do, you can pick them up, and then you can use them to fight different threats that are going around the board. So yeah, that's what you'll be doing. That's what you'll be trying to do. Because after this 10 minutes where you're frantically trying to program this, you're going to go through and see what actually happened, which is nothing near what you planned was going to happen. Because all of these things you're doing, like refueling energy or firing weapons or stuff, are very dependent on each other. So if I was like, yeah, I definitely refueled the energy, and then Ben's like, okay, great, I'm going to fire the laser now. If I refueled the energy on turn 3 and Ben tried to fire the laser on turn 2, there's no energy for that laser. So then Ben's thing did nothing. I refueled after the threat has passed. That means we probably didn't even kill that thing, so it's going to damage our ship and mess up the rest of our actions. And it's so things like that happen frequently. And it's just so much fun, so much chaos. The real-time aspect is chaotic, so if that's not your thing, I don't know if Space Alert would be your game. But as far as just the energy brought to a game, I don't think I've played anything like Space Alert. It is one of my favorite games of all time. And if you know Space Alert, this might surprise you, I've almost exclusively played this 2-player. This is very much a game optimized for 4 players. For 2 players, you need to program some extra androids to do some stuff. But it's not the end of the world. It actually works pretty well. It's a game I played a lot with my dad, and my dad, who doesn't like all of these newfangled games, has sat through about 100 games of Space Alert with me. So, yeah, it holds a very special place in my heart. I don't get it out because that real-time aspect makes it very hard to get new players in, because you need to know exactly how all these systems work in order to have even a shot at winning. So there's some training games built into it. So it's built with that in mind. It knows that it's a bit of an ask for players, and it helps you ramp up. But you do have to accept that you're going to be playing probably 1 or 2 sessions, not even just games, 1 or 2 sessions. You'll just be doing those training games to kind of get familiar with the systems. And that's probably still fun for the players who are learning those systems. For the players who have learned those systems, it's like, okay, these are kind of the easier missions. Well, So it's hard to get to the table for that reason. But when it does get to the table, it's a pretty great game.
All right.
Know nothing about it,
All right.
but it's one I'd definitely try.
So, sounds like to me like Galaxy Trucker, except more chaotic.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up Galaxy Trucker because they look similar. They're set in the same universe. And I forgot to say this about Space Alert. I'm glad you said that. This game, there's a lot of randomness. There's very little luck. When you lose, it is your fault. It is not because you got a bad roll or something. It is because you mismatched your planning with the other players. You can make the cards more difficult. It doesn't necessarily make them do more damage. It just makes them more confusing how they interact with each other. So you're not going to lose because you got a bad roll.
Sure.
Which I love about it.
Sweet. One game I have that's like real-time cooperative like this is Magic Maze. That's one that I played. It sounds a little less chaotic than this game. This seems like just like the most chaotic version of a cooperative real-time game you can get. And
yes.
And so if you have players where if you ever want to give them a heart attack, we can definitely bring that out if there's ever someone that we don't like, that we just want them to just don't come anymore.
Or maybe they'll love it.
But then they'll die of a heart attack.
Oh, that works too.
Yes. All right.
Number 3.
Top 3.
Yep.
This is exciting.
My number 3 is my favorite Euro style game, and it's Carpe Diem.
All right.
Designed by Stefan Feld and published by Alea. It's a tile laying game where you're going to have these 7 different things, and you have 4 different tiles. There's going to be like villa type things that have chimneys that are going to score, and then there's different ways to build things to get resources. And then one of the things I really like in it is the scoring. There's going to be this deck of cards this board of cards that's different every game. That's going to give you scoring opportunities. You stick this little disc in between them. So one might want certain resources, one might want certain buildings. And it's just one that's been really fun, and it's puzzly, and yeah.
All right. So when I first asked you, like when you first started coming to the board games, like what your favorite game is, you said Carpe Diem.
Yep.
And so this used to be your number 1 at some point?
Yep, until around September-ish.
Yeah.
A certain game was my number 1, and then around December, another certain game became my number 1.
Right.
Okay.
So
Do you think it's your taste in gaming has changed, or is it just that new games have come out, come into your life?
Probably new games. I don't think it's changed too much.
Okay.
Just some certain solo games that I've played a lot recently.
Okay.
Interesting.
She doesn't like us anymore. She prefers to play by herself.
Should try Mage Knight.
That's one I want to try. The only thing is the setup part of it.
Okay. All right. That's Carpe Diem by Stefan Feld. So I've thought about picking up a copy of this just because it's been it appealed to me, aside from the fact of it looking ugly. Just the gameplay itself looked up, because this game is not a looker by any means.
The first edition, which I don't have, is really bad.
Okay.
And it had bad basically production choices.
Sure.
So you have to set up 4 rounds of it, and in the first edition you had to separate them, and it was like a green and then a slightly different shade of green.
Yeah.
So it was very hard to tell. I never played that version.
Okay.
And then they did a second edition. I don't really know how much it changed, but there was still production problems. But then there was a third edition, which is the one I have, and they made it white and black.
Okay.
And it looks a little bit better. It's not like an amazing looking game, but it's fine. It does the job.
Are you talking about the white box version?
Yep.
Okay. Because you can get the old version on Amazon for like $18 or something. I've thought about doing that. I haven't had it in my cart for a long time, but I'm worried about that. But I might just pull the trigger on it and just pick it up and then be like, hey, Jamie, show us this game.
I can
That's
do that,
so
yeah.
awesome. And yes. All right. Carpe Diem.
I think my number 3 might be a little. It's not that. It's a little controversial, maybe.
Okay.
So my number 3 is Mysterium.
Ah.
So Mysterium, it is another cooperative game. So Space Alert was cooperative. This was cooperative. I like co-op games, everybody. So so Mysterium is a cooperative game where someone has died, and their ghost is trying to communicate with the other players who killed them, where, and either what the murder weapon was, or if you have certain expansions, it might be what the motivation was. So very Clue-like setup. There's a couple differences that can be a little tricky to teach to new players. Each person has their kind of own person, place, and thing they're trying to figure out. And you're all working together. So you're not trying to hide information from other players. You're very much trying to collaborate, help each other solve puzzles. But what I haven't said yet is that all of this is based on pictures. So the people, places, and things are just different pictures on the board with all these different facets to them, all these little objects hanging around. And then the ghost player is not allowed to speak. They're only allowed to communicate through vision cards they have in their hands. So what I love about this game, so it's a game that's going to play probably at, like, 4 players would be low. I'd probably want at least 5. It goes 5 to 7. I've played it with more than that. Since it's so cooperative, just putting a couple people doing the same thing isn't the end of the world. But what I love about this game is kind of the conversations and questions it has players trying to answer. Like, I look at that picture and I see a red ball. Does that relate to the red ball in this person's picture? Or is that actually like a metaphor for childhood and therefore it's actually this picture? So it's just, it makes you think in such a different way. And that's something that I think has been done a few more times now. I bought this game pretty close to when it came out, and I know when I played it, it was like nothing I'd played before. And I still think it's just a very immersive, it gets you thinking in just such interesting ways. And it gets you talking about these cards. I don't know. I really love the conversations this game produces. It can sometimes be frustrating. There's definitely times where at the end of the game, you're like, oh no, they all think that it's the Razor, and there's not a single card I could play from my hand to convince them otherwise. So that happens. more often than I might like. But overall, it's just a game. It's just so interesting.
Sure.
And yeah, I love it. It is a pain to set up, especially like since it's not a super heavy game, you wouldn't expect that. But it is, so I will always recruit people to help me set this up. I'll be like, search through the stack of cards and pull out these. Thank you. Next person, you check this. Yeah, it has its annoyances, but I think it's worth it.
Jamie's thoughts, and please, need thoughts.
Played it one time, didn't like it. I guess I would try it again, but it just wasn't that interesting to me.
So, my thoughts. I think this is a very also group dependent because I understand that this is not a game for everyone. So not everyone's brain is like, it picks up on visual cues and also like non-verbal cues because I know a lot of people verbally, they need information communicated to them verbally. So this is definitely not a game for that. Also, like you're looking at visual, so non-words, like so there's not, it's not words on a page. You can't be like, hey, this is this word, because you're taking these pictures, and these are pictures unlike anything anyone's ever seen before. These are very abstracted pictures. There is no part of this photo that would be like, this could happen in real life. This could happen in a fantasy world that I've seen before. These are completely original photograph, like drawings that people have with mentally insane minds have created, and that's cool. Like it's unique because there's not a single photo where I'm like, this could possibly have happened in a world like this, because it's so realistic, like surrealism. Yeah. At its finest. I did get a copy of Tajemnicze Domostwo, which, if for anyone that doesn't know, that's the Polish original version of it. It's more of a streamlined version of it. I know we talked before about your what you like about Mysterium versus Tajemnicze Domostwo.
The answer isn't like... So, there are a couple extra things going on in Mysterium that aren't going on in the original. Sure. I could I could take them or leave them.
Sure.
I know when Mysterium was first coming out, they were like, the original fans were like, how dare you do that? That's just, no, don't do that. It's not that bad. But, I will agree with what you're saying that, like, it is not a game for everyone. So I've tried to point out the reasons I like it, and I think the reasons I like it very well might be reasons you don't like it. So... with that in mind, for me, it's one of my favorites.
Sure. I do think that the Mysterium version, the American version, is a little more forgiving, whereas Tajemnicze Domostwo, you have less time to solve the clues because you don't have that final round at the end. Yeah. Like, you have to have it completely done by the end of that final round. Whereas the Mysterium, after that final round, there's the guessing round where you're guessing what it is. And so I do think that is a little bit less, more punishing, whereas Mysterium, you have that final round, which ends up being a big part of the game. But I think the production quality is a little better with the American version. I
would say that 100%. Like, from what I understand, the original's pretty gritty. Like, it's kind of spooky art, whereas, like, the American version is much more surreal, fairy tale type art.
But, like, the art cards themselves are the same, but, like, the characters are different. And you're not using these nice, like, plastic pieces. You're using little wooden discs. And you're using small cards, and you're using... And you don't have this nice, like, DM screen that you're keeping everything together in, which is cool. I don't know if it's essential, but it definitely helps things, and it like adds to the ambiance of it. Like, you're feeling like you're really like this person is actually trying to be secretive. Like, you're hiding behind this DM screen, and as a person that enjoys role-playing games, I think that's cool. But yeah, a top 3, it's always really been really high for you. And I enjoyed it. I think the fact that everyone else did not seem to enjoy it. Kind of took away from the experience for us at least. But I definitely want to get to the table. I don't know if it's the same group of people, just because.
I'd try it again. I probably should.
Yeah, but I also want to try Tayamichi de Mosfo.
Mm-hmm.
Try my copy of that. All right, top 2 now.
Yep.
So we have a new number 1. So
Yep.
this is going to be exciting.
I started playing this game I think around September of last year.
Okay.
I thought Carpe Diem would be my number 1, but this game came out or didn't come out then, but I started playing it around then, and it's very modular and kind of like plug and play, which I really like, and it's Final Girl,
Wow.
designed
Okay.
by Evan Derrick and AJ Porfrio and published by Van Ryder Games.
All right.
So basically in this game, you have the starter box, and then you can buy any of these different core boxes, which are based on different horror movies like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, stuff like that. And you basically you can either play it in the box or you can mix and match. So you pick the killer, you pick the location, and then you pick your final girl, and you run that scenario, and it's just a really fun game. You're going to have these cards that you're going to buy, and you're trying to figure out should you move to save these people, or should you go try to attack the killer? And it's just been one that I've really enjoyed, and the modular aspect of it is just really fun, so there's so much variety in it.
Do you have any experience with this?
I don't. So I've notable exception, Mage Knight excluded. I've typically bounced off solitaire games.
Sure.
So I haven't gone out of my way to purchase purely solitaire
Sure.
often.
Okay. So I did buy this game semi-recently. Haven't gotten it to the table. I do want to ask though, is this a theme that you enjoy?
I'm not the biggest into horror movies.
Okay.
It's kind of more campy.
Sure.
I'd say it's a cool theme that works for me. I like
Okay.
it.
Cool. Because I know with Evan Derrick and Van Ryder Games,
Mm-hmm.
they make these super thematic games that are just wow.
Mm-hmm.
They have a new game, Dark Quarter, coming out, which is Destinies, but set in a 19 I don't know if it's 70s 80s New Orleans with a sort of a voodoo theme, which is really exciting for me. I'm looking forward to that game a lot. I definitely want to get Final Girl to the table. I don't play as many solo games, but I think this would be the 1-2 play for me. I did buy the starter set from Barnes & Noble.
I think that's the best one to start with because it doesn't have any complex rules or anything.
Okay, cool.
It's definitely one that it takes a time or two to kind of
Sure.
get the rules down.
Sure.
But I've played it so many times now that it's kind of second nature.
Okay, cool. I know this is another one that solo gamers are really high on. And if you're looking for a thematic one, then this is one to go for.
Yep.
Cool. Nice pick. I wasn't sure if the horror theme was something that you enjoyed or not, so I was kind of curious when you told me that first told me that you were starting to play Final Girl.
Yep.
It's oh, are you really that into horror?
Not really, but
Okay.
this is one
Cool.
it's the solo aspect
'Cause-
of it and just
Yeah. So you think that if you're not a huge horror fan, you can still get into this game?
I'm not sure on that one.
Okay.
Some people might be put off by the theme of it.
Okay.
It doesn't bother me,
Okay.
and to me it's more campy anyway, so
Sure. Yeah. Because Van Ryder, they make these games kind of like that, like Detective City of Angels. They're kind of dark in theme, but they're also super thematic too. So you have to be okay
Yep.
with the darker side of life. All right.
Number 2.
Number 2, yes.
Okay. As I said, 2 through 4 could switch around for me. But this one. So I talked a little bit about how hard Space Alert is to get to the table.
Yes.
The next game on my list has about half the things I love about Space Alert. Half. So not all of them by any stretch of the imagination. But it's so much easier to play. I've had such a good time with it. And that is The Crew. So The Crew is also a cooperative game where you are trying to... Okay, what you're trying to do is a little bit different. You are, I think it's like Quest for Planet 9 or something like that.
Yeah.
Where it has a theme, sure. It's a trick-taking game. It's a cooperative trick-taking game. And what you are trying to do is each player will be trying to win the trick having a certain card. So there's 4 different suits, plus a trump suit of rockets. So I might try to be winning the pink 8. But maybe Ben has the pink 8 in his hand. But the good news is I have the pink 9 in my hand. So maybe there's some limited communication. You can share 1 card per round. So maybe I'd be like, hey, guess what? I have the pink 9. All is good in the world. Ben can play the pink 8. I'll play my pink 9 to pick it up, and we're all good. And then there's other horrible things that might happen, like maybe I need to win the pink 8. And I have the pink 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. No pink 8. How on earth am I going to win a trick having the pink 8 if I don't have any high pinks in my hand? So this game turns into some really interesting ways of trying to thread the needle of, okay, how am I going to get this card so that you can also get this card? When we can barely communicate, you can only communicate one of the cards in your hand. So it just becomes very tense. It's a very interesting puzzle. It is a campaign, so you'll be playing more and more kind of involved challenges as the game goes on. And I played it with some of my friends in grad school, and we would go for like 3-hour sessions of playing the crew. Like, we had a very good time with this game. I also played Deep Sea, whatever, or Mission Deep Sea, whatever.
Yep.
I did not like that one nearly as much. I think the original is a lot more streamlined and works. It accomplishes its task a lot better. But I just really enjoyed the game. As I said, it's a lot. It doesn't have the chaos of Space Alert. It doesn't have the fun theme of Space Alert. It really doesn't have that much in common with Space Alert, but it does have that kind of, you're going to work together with your team to accomplish this goal. And as your team gets to know each other better, you'll kind of figure out how to accomplish these things even better. And I think that's probably the thing that they have in common the most, is kind of working with your team and building that together.
Sure.
The Crew is one I actually really like. I haven't played it too many times, just here. I'd like to play it more. It'd be fun to like go through the campaign sometime.
So you're one of the few people that prefers the Quest for Planet 9 over the Mission Deep Sea. And that's alright. I haven't played the Mission Deep Sea one. But you have a lot of these like limited communication sort of cooperative games, which I'm starting to like those more and more. And I know we just played one recently that was designed by someone I went to high school with, Isaac, Expressions, which I thought was really good. I compare it kind of to the Crew in that aspect, even though it's not trick-taking, it's a card play, but
It definitely had some similar vibes. Would not take the number 2 spot on my list. But I do see what you're saying there.
yes. Yeah. But yeah, so you also had Mysterium, which is another limited communication. You had, what else did you have? I think you had another 1 or 2 on your list that were limited communication, cooperative games, which, again, like we talked about with Mysterium, not for everyone.
Yeah.
That you have to really be okay with that, and you have to just also, your brain kind of has to work that way, where it doesn't, not everyone's brain works that way.
So I'd say the limited communication in the Crew is less. It doesn't require quite as outside the box thinking.
Sure.
Like, I think it is more deductive in nature. Like,
Sure.
you can puzzle out what exactly is going on. Whereas Mysterium, you're like, I need you to get on the same wavelength as me so that
Yes.
we can figure out what this picture means. So,
But we've also had people in the past, in a part of our group, not so much now, where we've had to tell them, hey, you're not allowed to talk. And we're even during the game, like, you tell them, hey, you're not allowed to talk, and they'll still be like, hey, I have this card in my hand. It's like, don't tell us that. Now we got to reshuffle and retry this. But hey, that's gonna happen with limited communication games like this. But yeah, number 2. All right, awesome. So See, I don't know. Do we go through like 5 or 6 of the scenarios or something?
We
Yep.
did a few of them.
Yeah.
Not a ton. But-
'Cause isn't there like 50 or so?
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sweet. And it gets progressively harder as you go on.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you beaten the final one?
Yeah. Final one probably isn't even the hardest of them.
Okay.
Still hard, but
Okay.
cool.
Cool.
And I think if you really like the final mission, you'll love Mission Deep Sea because it some of them are less based on trying to win certain cards and
Sure.
more like other tasks. That's what Mission Deep Sea leans into is you're trying to do different types of things. So
Mhm.
All right. Yeah. So, for those who watch the Dice Tower, which I've been a part of a few times, so there's a guy, Mike DeLisio, in there who
Mhm.
used to talk about this game all the time, about how this game is a flash in the pan. It's, you know about that?
Yep.
And then this year he put it in his top 100
Mhm.
and shocked the world. And it's like, that's funny. And then Tom Vassell has had it in his top 10
Yep.
for the longest time. But yeah, it's a great game. Let's see. Did it make my top 50? I don't think so. I don't think it made my top 50, but it's in my top 100.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So it's up there. It's just not
Mhm.
there. It's not number 2.
Yeah.
But it's a great game that I
Yep.
enjoy playing, and yeah. All right,
number
number
one.
1.
So I started playing this game in December of last year.
All right.
It's my only co-op game on the list, but I've never played a co-op. I've only played solo, and it's Marvel Champions.
I was hoping that
Yeah.
would be it.
Designed by Michael Boggs, Nate French, and Caleb Grace, published by Fantasy Flight Games. It's another one of those games that are very like modular and plug and play. You pick a hero, you pick a villain, and then you build your deck, and you can choose between 4 different aspects, 5 now, and they each play differently. So you have your characters that play differently, and then the different aspects that play differently, and you're trying to defeat the villain while also trying to mitigate the threat that's getting on the different like schemes and stuff that they're trying to do. And it's just been one that I've really enjoyed playing the different characters and building like the different decks. And yeah, I've played it so many times now, and it's just become one of my favorites.
I can get on board with that decision.
Mhm.
It wasn't quite as high for me, but like I still enjoy it quite a
Mhm.
bit.
Sure. So I'm a big Marvel United fan.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes this game higher for you than a game like Marvel United?
I've only played Marvel United once,
Okay.
and it wasn't the greatest experience. They taught rules wrong and stuff.
Oh, did you play with David?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And so Marvel United is one I really want to get into and try because I think I'd really like it. It would probably make my top 50 if I played it more.
It's so good.
So that's one I'd really like to play.
I keep forgetting because we've played it quite a bit recently
Mm-hmm.
that I just forget that, hey, Jamie's not here for this. So it's just every time we play it, it just happens to be the days when you're not there,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't happen often.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry about that.
It's
I
all
didn't
good.
realize that. Yeah, learning it from David is not the way to play
Mm-hmm.
Marvel United. You gotta, yeah. When we played it with Sharita, and that was a really good time, I thought.
So I will say they're quite different games.
Very.
Yeah.
So Marvel United was like pretty light family game.
Mhm.
Sure,
Marvel Champions is not.
sure.
It's very puzzly, very like, yeah. They're definitely going for different things.
Mhm.
How would you compare it to like Legendary, maybe?
Champions?
Yeah.
I prefer it to Legendary. I like but don't love Legendary. And I really like Marvel Champions. So so yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot more game to Marvel Champions.
Yep.
Okay.
Would you say with Marvel United, it's got like the plug and play aspect? That's what I've heard.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's definitely probably the most plug and play.
Yep. That's what I really like. And they're with Final Girl and Marvel Champions. They're like pretty easy to set up.
Okay.
With Final Girl, it's all just in like certain boxes, so it's very easy to set up. With Marvel Champions, I've been able to like bag everything and have it organized in a way so it's very easy. Just grab the couple bags and
Okay.
play, and I really like
Gotcha.
that. Just quick pick whatever you want, the hero and villain, and just play around really quickly.
Gotcha.
Favorite Marvel Champions character?
Probably Captain Marvel is one of them.
Okay.
Carol Danvers.
Yep.
Nice.
I'm an Iron Man fan.
He's
Oh.
fun to play up.
Yeah.
You have to build him up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
That's the other thing. Each hero is like very unique in how it plays.
Okay.
So they're just like very versatile, and then depending on the aspect you choose, it'll be very different too.
Okay. Sweet. So, I've had an interesting history. I've played it 0 times.
Yep.
And have owned it a total. I got it probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had it. My ex-girlfriend Alex at the time took my copy,
Mhm.
or at least I think she took my copy. I know she ended up with a copy. And then I bought a new copy, and I've sat on that for about 2 or 3 years now, and with the full intention of playing it solo, but then never getting around to it. Have since gotten into Marvel Legendary, gotten out of Marvel Legendary, got really into Marvel United,
Mm-hmm.
gotten out of Marvel United, got really back into Marvel United.
So it's time for Marvel Champions.
I guess it's time for Marvel Champions. But yeah, so I do a lot of comic content on the channel.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that's a theme that you're into or not.
I've never read like many comics.
Okay.
It's definitely made me like more interested in Marvel. I've seen some of the movies and stuff.
Okay. So it's more sort of the gameplay than the actual theme itself. Okay. Yeah, I don't do a ton of Marvel content on the channel. I do mostly like the independent stuff, like horror, drama, mystery, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so just something I haven't gotten too into. I like the Marvel United with the chibis and the figures and the modularity of it. But I'll have to give that a try at some point. Maybe at a 2-player at some point, maybe.
That's the one thing with Marvel Champions is that I think it's solo or 2 players.
Okay.
With 4 players, I've heard it goes on way too long.
Okay, well then we just have to kill off Eli real quick, and then we'll have a 3-player game, right?
Yeah.
Is there player elimination in this?
No.
Okay, never mind then. All right, so
Actually, I don't know what happens if you have 4 and 1 dies. I think you still keep playing.
So I've played it mostly entirely 2-player. It's one that I do have to read the rules like every time I play it because I don't play it often. I think if a player dies, the game's over, but I could very well be wrong.
no pressure. No pressure. I'd be the one that would die.
Usually what happens when we play this is like both of us try to protect our lives at the expense of losing the game in other ways.
Okay. So this game can be a bit of a challenge.
Yep, depending on the villain. There's definitely easier ones and harder ones.
Okay.
And then there's better characters and not as good characters too.
Sure.
And then depending on how you build your deck and stuff.
Okay. We might have to do a video arguing which one's better between Marvel United and Marvel Legendary, Marvel Champions.
I've never played Marvel Legendary though.
I don't think anyone would be advocating for Marvel Legendary.
Marvel
Unfortunately,
Legendary is kind of...
it's okay.
It goes a little long, and the setup is not fun, and the semi-co-op version of the whole
Is
thing...
don't.
What do you mean? We won the game, but I won the game because I had the most points.
No.
Thanks for helping me win. All right, you're number 1.
Yep.
Yeah, I really need to check my list. I'm
Yes.
sure everyone can guess what it is because I've talked about how I like Pandemic and it hasn't shown up yet. If I was really good, well, no, this was totally impossible. I have the original copy back in Michigan. So Pandemic got me into the hobby. So I think I've talked about Pandemic a little bit already, like how you play. There's 4 diseases. You are working together to cure those diseases by collecting sets of cards of different colors, but you are also trying to stop the disease from spreading around the board, so you'll also have to be spending actions kind of taking care of the hot spots, making sure they don't outbreak, but also making sure that you're, progressing with curing diseases so that time doesn't run out and you don't lose that way. So it's the game that got me into the hobby. I bought it pretty close to when it came out too. I was like about 13 when I first played Pandemic. And for a good solid while it was the only game I had, and I enjoyed it a lot. Eventually I got other games and played them, but still enjoyed Pandemic a lot. And now, like, 13 years later, I still enjoy Pandemic a lot. There's been other games that I've grown to really like, and then they've kind of fallen away. But this is one that pretty much from the beginning I've always enjoyed. I would say that, has an emotional place in my heart because it was my first, but also even just the game itself, as someone who's played it for years and years and years, there's still so many times in the game where something happens and we're like, how are we going to solve this problem? And it seems like maybe there's not a solution, but then as you look at it, someone's like, wait a second, what if we do this? And then you can still come up with a really clever solution to do something that none of you would have expected was possible. So I think it's a game that, for me, I will never get tired of. I would say the biggest problem with me in Pandemic is I've played it for 13 years, and it does have an alpha gamer problem where someone makes all the choices. Sometimes I'm that person. I try not to be
the quarterback,
but I don't know if I can help it all the time. So, so that is it's been notorious for that problem for its entire run. Is like one player can kind of do all the things, and then it's less fun for the others. So just try not to. There's another solution for that. If you have the On the Brink expansion, you can be the bioterrorist and spread disease and let them worry about saving the world.
Wow, that's awesome.
We have not done that. I haven't done that to you yet.
That sounds fun.
But, so yeah, this is a game I would say, again, I love it. It's something I've played for years and years and still enjoy taking off the shelf whenever I do. It was briefly beat out by Space Alert. Maybe Space Alert will return. Who knows? It is a game where I would say you almost need to have the On the Brink expansion because the more characters you can play, the better. On the Brink has a ton of variety. Plus that the expansions are kind of hit or miss. You see Pandemic in the Lab, which I almost never use. But yeah, there is. Yeah. And if you notice, my top 4 games were all cooperative, and this is the reason why, because I entered the hobby as a cooperative gamer and never left. So
yeah, so this is before this game, you didn't ask, hey, is this game cooperative or competitive? Because I know there's been a lot of times when not only myself have taught games, but other people have taught games, and when we get done with the teach of the whole game, it's someone at the table's like, is this game cooperative or competitive? It's like, I think we're supposed to talk about that first. But before Pandemic, that wasn't a thing. It's like, naturally, you're supposed to make your friends feel like they're inferior to you. But that's cooperative games came along, and yeah. So you like base Pandemic? That's your favorite?
Don't quote me on that.
Don't quote you
so your Iberia.
Iberia's my favorite and Sharita's favorite.
So I would say, and this is kind of my line on it, Iberia is the best single box of Pandemic.
Sure.
Pandemic plus On the Brink is the best use of your money if you're going into Pandemic. Because I think those two together, Iberia comes with a lot of extra fun stuff.
Yeah.
Pandemic plus On the Brink has even more fun stuff.
Yeah. I will say I prefer Iberia just because I like the building up the rails and stuff. I do think for new people getting into the hobby, maybe base Pandemic might be the way to go. It's also the one that's available more readily, and it's the one that usually whenever Amazon or the big board game stores have discounts and sales, it's the base Pandemic that you can find for a really good price.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Pandemic, Jamie? Before
I've only played Iberia once. That was my first time ever playing a Pandemic game, and then I played the original recently, and they're all right. They're ones I think I would want to play again just to see what I really think of them.
I do believe we lost both those games, and I apologize
Yeah.
on behalf of Pandemic.
But I think out of just base games, Iberia was better.
Yeah. And so, whereas these games are not limited communication,
Mhm.
so they can suffer from the problem of quarterbacking and people that trying to run the game because they get so competitive that,
Yep.
that winning is everything, and they wanted to be like, hey, and then like they're telling everyone what they should be doing on their turns. You say you're bad, you suffer from that. I don't think you're as bad as some people I've played with. I've definitely played with some people where it's absolutely ruined the game.
Mhm.
I've also ruined had games ruined by just people just arguing the whole time because everyone thinks they know what's the best thing. So when you have two quarterbacks playing the same
Ooh.
game, oh yeah, that
Yikes.
I've had that before. That's
Mhm.
that's wow, I'm ready to flip the table at that point.
Yeah, and again, Pandemic is pretty notorious for that problem. Probably just because it is one of the most played cooperative games.
Yes.
I would say your first game, it's recommended play open hand. If you have a quarterback, don't. Make them ask what's in your hand so that they can't just order you around.
So,
Yeah.
we've had that with competitive games too. I know we had one guy who used to always tell people what to do for their turns, and he didn't always win. But yeah, so we're talking about your number one game as if it has so many flaws.
So, like, is it the best game on my list? Probably not. But again, it's the game that got me into the hobby. It gets some kudo points. And I do think 13 years of longevity for me speaks for something.
Yep.
Oh yeah, for sure. How many games have I been playing for 13 years in my top 50? One?
Has that game showed up yet?
No.
Okay.
But it's also one you don't care for.
Oh, darn.
It's a
Oh,
yeah.
I think I know what it is.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be that one, though. Well, I'll ask after.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which one is it?
Ugh.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, Pandemic, number one. So I'm not super surprised. I just didn't know if it would be on your top 50 by the time like you made it to number one by the time you made the list. Because I wasn't sure when you finished your list or not. Because I know we've kind of worked on our list like months ago.
Yep.
And so I wasn't sure what would be what. I know like I made my my list like the first of the year, and I haven't even done my top 10 yet, and my top 10's already changed. So, but yeah, but we're still going to do it as designed and as written, and that's how it's going to be.
Yep.
But yeah, great list overall. It
Yep.
wasn't a ton of change with yours. I think yours had a little bit more of a change to it than previous, but that is why we do these lists every year instead of once in a lifetime.
Yep.
Because just because a top 10 of all time means it's going to never change. But it's just our favorite games right now.
Yep.
Thank you for doing this with me.
Yep. No problem.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yep.
And I appreciate everyone watching. If you enjoyed this, please leave a comment down below what you'd like to see next from Jamie and Andrew. And we'll see you in the next one. Happy gaming and have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.